Unlocking the Dodecad. A summary of the numbers 1 to 12. The first 12 numbers in the basic numerical cosmology fall into 3 categories along with their respective types of geometry. First come the structural numbers and the geometries that occur in architecture and the universe. These numbers are 4 and 8, square root 2 proportion, and 3 and 6 of square root 3 proportion. Set above them all, as the first symbol of universal order, is the number 12 whose geometry embraces them all. 5 and 10 pertain to life and growth. 7 is the number of the soul, and, though it has priority, is the last to be illustrated in the geometer's cosmology. With 7 is placed the mystical 9, another symbol of the mysteries. Their natural associate is 11. 11 is the number that bridges the gap between the Decad and the Dodecad. Mediating between the two systems, the sublunary 10 and the heavenly 12, 11 has no distinct characteristic of its own. Its geometry is alienated from other systems, and it has no place in architecture and music. Yet in the realm of number, 11 is active in ratios and relationships, especially in partnership with 7. As in the 22, 7 ratio pi and 99, 70 square root 2 proportion. An arithmetical function of 11 is to sum up the numbers 1 to 9. Number 1, the one and only. This is the first symbol in geometry, symbol of the number 1 and the unique universe. The dot is dimensionless and conceptually non-existent, but it is the first and most essential element in its construction. The circle, the first figure in geometry, symbol of number 1 and the unique universe. The dot is dimensionless and conceptually non-existent, but it is the most essential element in its construction. The dot at the center of a diagram is called dimensionless and taken to symbolize the unchanging element in creation on which everything revolves, that is, divine law. The primary division of numbers is traditionally into 2 classes. The first comprises of the monad, the number 1, and the second, all other numbers. Being uniquely indivisible into integral parts, the monad is the image of the whole of wholes, Plato's name for the universe. Duality and the world paradox. The number 2, the dyad, represents lapse from unity, the split between heaven and earth, the rivalry and mutual dependence of the negative and the positive and all other parts of corresponding opposites. The symbol of the first active stage in creation, its equivocal nature arise from the conflicting desires of its 2 parts to react against each other and to seek union. The geometry of number 2 is 2 points joined by a line, for example, the diameter of a circle, or the line that connects the 2 centers of a vesica Pisces. With this image enters the duality that runs through nature, gives 2 sides to every question, and makes this world a paradox. The geometry of 3, the vesica Pisces and material creation. The vesica Pisces and the marriage made in heaven. Symbols of the material creation begin with the first composite figure in geometry, made up of 2 separate shapes. It is the union of 2 equal circles, each circle passing through the center of the other. The shape made by the 2 overlapping circles has been given many names, usually implying that it is a source or mother of geometric forms. In creative geometry, it is commonly known as the vesica Pisces, the fish vessel, because it looks something like a fish. The first product of the vesica Pisces is a twin pair of equilateral triangles standing base the base. This 4-sided figure is called a rhoom or rhombus. The equilateral triangle is the first regular polygon, so 3 is the first number that encloses an area. It is often regarded by geometers as the first real number, 1 and 2 being abstract principles. 2 circles mate, each passing through the center of the other in the area where they overlap. The womb, as geometers imagine it, is generated a rhoom or rhombus. Its 2 halves, black and white like their parents, are set together point to point, and when they mate, they slide over each other to form a hexagon. Formed by the union of the 2 equal circles, the vesica Pisces gives birth to the rhombus, made of 2 equilateral triangles. If the width is 1, its height is square root 3 ratio, giving birth to the root 3 proportion that prevails throughout the physical world. The equal-sided triangle is the first regular polygon. 3 is the first number that encloses an area. It is often regarded by geometers as the first real number, 1 and 2 being abstract principles. 4 and the square. Reason, stability, and order. the rational square, and the root 2 proportion. A further product of the vesica, the geometer's womb image, is the square, symbol of the number 4. If the creator had the use of a T-square, as the Masonic emblem indicates, he could have easily have drawn a square with his ready-made right angle. According to our myth, however, he had nothing but a compass and ruler, and when geometers talk of constructing a figure, they mean drawing it with these instruments alone. The simplest way to draw a square is to draw a circle with a diameter and enclose it in a vesica. Joining the two ends of the diameter to the 2 points where the longer axis of the vesica cuts, the circle completes the square. In contrast to the circle, whose circumference is defined as its width times the irrational pi, the square is a rational figure. The measure round its 4 sides is equal to 4 times its width. It stands for reason, stability, and order, as implied by phrases as fair and square and standing 4 square. The cube, the 3-dimensional extension of the square, is the traditional symbol of earth and firm ground. Plato calls it the most stable of the geometric solids. 4 2 times 2 is the first square number. With it, the world acquired its 4 quarters and directions, 4 seasons, 4 primary colors, and the root 2 proportion favored by rational administrators. The square is not often apparent in nature, but dominates architecture and the works of man. 6 and the hexagon, the perfect number. According to the story in the first chapter of Genesis, which is based on the number and geometry, the universe was completed in 6 days. The number 6 was allotted to the period of creation because it is the first perfect number. As St. Augustine wrote in the City of God, God, even though he could have created the world in an instant, decided to dedicate it to 6 days in order to reflect on the perfection of the universe. A perfect number, as defined since ancient times, is a number that is the sum of its factors. The factors of 6 are 1, 2, and 3, and 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 6. 6 is not the only perfect number. 6 is also called the marriage number because the hexagon is created by the union of the 2 equilateral triangles, which are the first issue of the Vesica Piscis. 8 and the octagon, for peace and for justice. 8 is the first cubed number, 2 times 2 times 2. Like the cube, the octagon is consummated, the second of the sacred marriages in geometry, the union of 2 perfect squares, overlapping diagonally. From these square associations, the octagon derives the earthly side of its character. It conforms throughout to the square root 2 proportion. 8 belongs to the class of numbers called evenly even because they can be halved and halved again right down to 1. In the same way, a sheet of ordinary A4 size typing paper, whose size is in 1 to square root 2 proportion, can be folded in half to make A5, half of which is a 6 size, and so on, always retaining the same square root 2 ratio in its sides. The evenly even series begins 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and so on. These numbers are popular with architects and were much used by the medieval masons. In churches and chapter houses throughout Europe, their octagonal and 16-fold symmetries in stone delight the senses and at the same time are strictly functional in roofing and supporting their structures. A common architectural use for the octagon is to bridge the gap between square and circle, as when a dome or a cylindrical spire, symbolizing the heavens, is set upon a square base, symbol of the earth. The octagon that mediates between these two opposite shapes has the appropriate angelic symbolism. In the field of number, 12 is the ruler of them all. The entire structure of number is basically duodecimal, and so is the cosmological diagram that depicts, through the paradigm of number, the entire universe. 12 is above all the number of order. It is the root number in the code of proportions that governs the solar system, and it therefore plays a leading part in all aspects of cosmologically ordered societies, wherever they arise. It may be called the framework number. Its shape, the Dodecad, accommodates the geometries of the structural numbers 3, 4, 6, 8, and also, as shown later, the geometry of 7. In three-dimensional geometry, the number 12 reigns supreme. Ever since Johann Kepler claimed to have packed all the 5 regular or platonic solids into successive shells, corresponding to the planetary orbits, geometers and physicists have followed the same path, towards the depiction of universal order, from the astronomical to the atomic scale. 5 and 10. Numbers of life and growth. Life and the pentagon. 5 has left its signature throughout nature. Briar roses and most other wildflowers have 5 petals with pentagonal stamens, and tiny pentagonal geometry is continued around their centers, reflecting the number 5. All trees and shrubs that bear edible fruit have 5-sided flowers, and their pentagonal geometry is continued in the fruit itself. Cutting an apple in two along its equator exposes the delicate little pentagram formed by its seeds. The same pentagonal shapes and details occur in starfish and many other marine creatures of all sizes, down to the microscopic level. With the number 5 the last of the 4 principal ratios in geometry, the ratio of 1 to 1.6180333989, commonly known as the golden cut or golden section, this ratio governs the whole field of pentagonal geometry, beginning with the pentagram itself, which conforms to the golden section, in all its limbs and parts. The Holy Seven, symbol of the world soul. 7 and the mysteries. With the number 7, the geometer's creation story enters another dimension, going beyond the physical universe and earthly life into the world of divinity. 7 is the number of the world soul. It is not therefore reckoned as a created number because soul existed before creation, and its corresponding number is given the same priority. It is the divine spirit that appears at the beginning of the Bible story in Genesis 1, where the world was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved over the face of the waters. That was the state of things before the Creator began his geometry, before he made images of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 was there already, and the Creator honored it by perfecting his work in the 7 days, the last of which he made holy. 7 is not often manifest in nature, though special plants have 7-fold leaves. In sacred or symbolic geography, the ideal landscape includes 7 hills, springs, streams, and other features. In cosmology, 7 is taken as the number of the universal axis, the conceptual pole on which everything revolves while the axis itself remains fixed and unchanging. That makes it a symbol of divine law, which never varies. 7 is unique among the numbers of the Decad because, as the Pythagoreans said, it neither generates nor is generated, meaning that it cannot be multiplied to produce another number within the first 10, nor is it the product of other numbers. For that reason, the heptad was called the Virgin and was a symbol of eternal rather than created things. It was particularly used to the measurement of time, the 7 ages of man, the 7 days of the week, or quadrant of the lunar month. It is thus connected with the perfect number 28, which governs the periods of the moon and the female, and it is also the cause of 28 being a triangular number, for 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 equals 28. With 7 as the measure of a circle's axis or radius, its circumference is a whole number, 22 or 44. 7 is also the pivot point in the decad expressed in factorial 7. 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 equals 5,040. 7 times 8 times 9 times 10 equals 5,040. 12 and 7. The supreme numerical marriage. The 2 great opposites in nature, partners through necessity and carefully woven together by the great geometer are body and soul, symbolized respectively by 12 and 7. The geometry of 12 is beautifully proportioned, Apollo-like, a work of symmetry and reason, whereas 7 is indefinable and wrapped in mystery. In all cosmographies and cosmological myths, 12 and 7 are equally prominent. Cities have 7 gates, are built on 7 hills, are founded on 7 springs. In St. John's visions of heaven and hell, depicted in Revelations, are 7 churches, 7 golden candlesticks, 7 angels, 7 spirits of God, 7 kings, and a 7-headed dragon. In the divinely ordered city of heavenly Jerusalem are 12 gates guarded by 12 angels, 12 cornerstones, 12 kinds of fruit, and 12 gemstones, and the names of the 12 tribes of Israel together with the 12 apostles. We will explore this further in another video. Please share and subscribe.